Welcome to this episode of the Smart Leaders Sell podcast. I'm Jessica Lorimer, sales coach and leadership expert, and today's topic is a little bit of a different one because as a result of me being trolled on Twitter by a very interesting person. And when I say trolled, I mean I get hate mail fairly regularly, and in fact it's one of the things that sometimes me and my boyfriend will actually look through and kind of go, "Oh, this is fun." Together, because some people say things that are genuinely quite entertaining when trolling me. Some people say things that are just mean. Maybe one day I'm going to do a podcast episode on the things that you can say that would actually, drive a little stake into my heart. But generally, when people message me and they say things like, "Hey Jess, you look really chubby in your Facebook Live today," that, doesn't really come onto my radar of trolling. In fact, it's something I get quite a lot. So I'm very, very glad that I'm working with an amazing health coach at the moment who's going to help me drop some of those pounds, because otherwise I'm just going to keep getting more of those messages. And whilst it is funny, when my boyfriend and I tell tell his mother about it, she always gets very excited and she's like, "Oh my God, if you're getting fatter, you could be pregnant." And I'm never pregnant. So it's always a bit of a disappointment. So this episode is all about being somebody that other people want to work with, because I see a lot of people who come to me and, quite frankly, some of the time there's nothing wrong with their sales strategy. It's just that they're not acting in a way that makes other people want to work with you. And when we're choosing people to work with, whether it's companies, whether it's solopreneurs, big businesses, small businesses, bob down the road, we always buy from people that we like. People buy from people. So we buy from people that we think will get us results. We buy from people who we feel like we can trust. We buy from people that we like. Now, there are going to be the odd occasions that you buy from somebody who you think, actually, I would not go to the pub with this person. I would not have a cup of tea with them. I would not let them stroke my dog. But it's few and far between. And generally, you buy from those people because the results that they can get you far outweigh the fact that you might have to spend time with somebody who's a little bit of a douche canoe for a specified period of time. So let's have a look at this. When I was working in the corporate world, one thing that my old boss taught me that, to be honest, really shaped who I was as a salesperson. Because when I came in as a salesperson, I thought that it was all about the hard sell. It was about being a total lad. It was being, having all the banter, going out for all the drinks, doing all the things. And to be honest, I did do some of that stuff regardless. But one of the things that he taught me was that you should always be yourself when it comes to sales, that you should always be somebody that other people like to be around. Now, that's going to be different in different situations. I look at the kind of person that I am. I'm somebody who is introverted in the truest sense of the word, in that I get more energy from having one-to-one conversations with people rather than being in big crowds. After being in big crowds, I kind of have to hermit for a little while. And I'm very good at having a close inner circle, but I'm really not great at having like lots and lots and lots of friends. That makes me sound like a real loser, doesn't it? It's true. Jessica Lorimer does not have 50 friends. I have like 5. And so for me, when I look at who I am as a person and the kind of things that I find interesting or the kind of people that I like to be around, I like to be surrounded by people who have the same values as me. The majority of my friends, the ones in real life, the 5 that I have, are ambitious people. They're driven. They're really focused on their jobs, on their careers, on their businesses. They have the same moral values as I do. They are honest. They have integrity. They also all think that they're funny, and sometimes they are and sometimes they're not. So it's a win-win situation generally. And then I look at, my boyfriend, for example, and he's an engineer by trade. He's very, very clever. He's got a master's degree in astronautics and aeronautics. And so I look at the kinds of people that he likes or the kinds of things that he finds interesting. And he's very similar to me in terms of the moral values and, the honesty, the integrity, that kind of stuff, because most people are. But in terms of the jokes that he finds funny and that his friends find funny, they're science jokes. And, they kind of tell them and I'm like, oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Don't really understand what happened there. They talk about jokes about Schrodinger's cat and other things that I can understand, but I just don't find them quite as entertaining. So one of the things that I see in this online space and that I see with business owners all the time is that there is such an extremist way of looking at how to build a business and how to be the person that other people want to buy from. So we've got one end of the scale, which is where I started when I left corporate, which is be so bland that nobody could be offended by you. And that's where I started, because when I came out of corporate, I had been very, very diplomatic for years and years and years, which I know that you might be thinking, really? How did that happen, Jess? I'm going to put it out there, years of conditioning. And so for me, I didn't want to offend anyone. I didn't want to cause any problems. I didn't want to cause any ructions. I just wanted to kind of be as generic as possible so that as few people as possible would be upset by anything that I possibly said or did. Now, needless to say, that does not get you the most business on the planet, I'll be honest. It does mean that you don't necessarily get trolled on Twitter. However, I would probably rather get trolled on Twitter every so often and find it fairly entertaining than actually feel like every single morning I'm waking up and I'm putting on a mask. And if I'm upset, I don't get to talk about it. And if I find something really funny, I don't get to talk about it. And, basically just have to hide my personality from the majority of the world for the majority of my time. And then you've got the other end of the scale, which is where people kind of create like these almost characters. And not in the kind of cool Beyonce / Sasha Fierce alter ego way. They create these characters that are just these larger than life. I can only describe it as like Keith Lemon. If you actually met Keith Lemon in real life, I bet he's a really nice guy. I bet he's pretty chilled. But you see him on TV adverts and it's like, whoa, I'm not sure I could go to the pub with him. Or maybe that's just where I feel personality was. Now, the whole point about being a good salesperson is that you have to be able to adapt. And, I know that I've just talked about personality. So you're probably thinking, well, Jess, how come, you've got to have a personality, but it can't be bland and it can't be extreme. Now you're telling me that I've got to adapt. But the important thing about being a salesperson is understanding how to put your message and your personality out there in a way that actually attracts people in the first place, and then be able to adapt to conversations with different people who enjoy different things, who are interested in different areas and have different subject matter of expertise. So that's what I want to look at today. Basically, the simple steps to selling as a real human, being able to attract your audience and, be able to attract the right clients for you through actually just showing up as you, and actually being able to adapt yourself to situations that would lend themselves nicely to helping you get things like more PR, helping you make more sales, helping you come across as the expert in your industry and being somebody that other people want to be around. Because that is half the battle of sales. If you can be a good salesperson, the likelihood is that one of your major skills is being able to make people feel good, and being somebody that other people want to be around. So, point one on this kind of tangent, I guess, for today is don't be a douche. Okay, I obviously recently had this person troll me on Twitter. Now, whilst I thought it was quite entertaining, I'd actually been up at 6:30 that morning on television. So I'd driven at 3:30 a.m. from my house to London. I had sat in hair and makeup with Scott Mills, which was actually kind of cool, at the Good Morning Britain studios at 6 a.m. And then at 6:30 a.m., I'd gone on to Good Morning Britain and I talked to Piers Morgan and Susanna Reid about the Facebook data breach scandal. Now, when you go on for a debate piece on any kind of media platform, but particularly television, you get given a side, effectively. And so my side was, hey, I think that Facebook need to look after people's data better. And I think that they need to be owning responsibility around what's happened here. And the other person's side was obviously, nah, Facebook did all good stuff. It's all good. Woohoo. Let's give them all of our data again. No bother. And again, because it's a debate piece, you have to sit on the extremes of your side. You can't just be in the middle and be like, yeah, well, actually, I guess it's kind of fine. Like, some of it's fine. And anyway, I went on TV. I did this little, I think it was an 8-minute segment. If anyone's interested in watching it, you can go onto my website. If you go on the press page, it's right there in all of its technicolor glory. And you can do it without being there at 6:30 a.m. as well, which is always nice. But anyway, I went on, I did the segment and went back for breakfast with my friends afterwards. Opened up my Twitter app and there was a guy who vehemently disagreed with all of my points that I'd kind of spoken about on television, which was fine. I love healthy debate. I am actually somebody who really thrives on uncomfortable conversations, on debate, on having interesting chats about weird and wonderful things. So actually, I was very, very excited when somebody got in touch and was like, I completely disagree with you. And I was like, yay, here's a chance for me to learn something. Here's a chance for me to have an interesting conversation. And I was like, okay, cool. Tell me, like, what do you feel that I did that was wrong? And instead of having a healthy conversation about it and being like, actually, I feel like, you made this point and it wasn't really relevant, or, you made this point and it wasn't backed up by any evidence. This person started just name calling and calling me a mindless drone and saying that I was reckless. And so even though I was going back to him, I was like, hey, look, here are the reports, here are the statistics, here are the studies that I got my opinions from, happy to always extrapolate on those. He just went straight into name calling. And in all honesty, it kind of made me sit back and go, do you know what? Not only would I never, ever, 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 ever want to be around somebody like you, but I would now never, ever buy from the company that we're talking about. I would never, ever want to be associated with them, because if their followers act in this way and do it publicly, there's absolutely no way on this planet I want to be associated with a company that kind of goes for that type of PR and publicity. So the first rule is always don't be a douche. Think about how you are acting and think about where you are putting your opinions. Absolutely great to have opinions. Absolutely great to have controversial opinions. I'm somebody who loves controversy. However, think about how that's coming across. Name calling, probably not going to get you sales, probably going to entertain a lot of people in your newsfeed. Not necessarily going to work out when it comes to being the top choice for people to work with you. Okay. Be very, very clear. Be very, very specific about your opinions. Do not be afraid to express them. Don't express them in a way that makes you look like a bit of a douche canoe. Okay? That's just how it goes. The second thing is, and this is one that I've seen recently a lot in the newsfeed, and quite honestly drives me absolutely crazy, and I just hit the unfriend button or the snooze button, depending on how nice I'm feeling that day, is think about how you're being perceived, okay? So what I've seen recently is a spate of everyone putting out these massive posts about how awful their life is. Now, I get it. We all have bad days. And in fact, I really feel for people in the entrepreneur space, because actually, there are lots of mental health issues that come into play when you're spending your days in a primarily isolated state. We do get a lot of entrepreneurs who suffer from things like depression. And I think it is something that we should be talking about. We should be creating more awareness about, but we should be doing it in a positive way, because that's how we help people, being honest, being transparent, having and opening difficult conversations. But what I've seen recently is a spate in the newsfeed of people just being like, oh, my life is awful, everything is terrible. And they will literally vomit out every single problem that they've ever had in their life, regardless of how potentially traumatic it could be for somebody else to read it, regardless of how raw the pain still is for them, regardless of the impact that it's going to put onto other people. Now, constantly writing drama posts, and this is the angle I'm going to take with this, and there'll be some people who go, but Jess, I should be allowed to say on Facebook when I have a bad day. And you absolutely should. If you're having a shitty day, go ahead, knock yourself out, tell people how terrible it is. But if you're somebody who every single day or every single week is writing out these lengthy warning, vulnerable posts, and then vomiting all of the bad things that have ever happened to you in your life ever onto the newsfeed, think about how that makes other people feel. Okay. And specifically, think about how it makes other people feel about working with you. And it's not just a consistent drama posts. If you're somebody who's consistently aggressive, if you're somebody who is always the first person to comment on a thread with something that isn't helpful, if you're the first person to comment on a thread or get involved in social media drama, if you're the first person to always be there in the thick of an argument, but it's never your fault, you've just stirred the pot, right? If you're that person, other people are not attracted to working with you. And the reason that they're not attracted to working with you is because honestly, people can't be kept in this constant state of adrenaline. It's really, really painful for our brains to always be on edge, to always be thinking about, oh my goodness, what's going to happen next? I'm going to be in pain. I'm going to be in pain. I'm going to be in pain. And our brains naturally want to run away from those things. It's actually one of the biggest reasons that people don't sell more often, because we worry about the painful parts. We worry about things like rejection. We worry about things like, imposter syndrome. And so when you see somebody in your newsfeed who's constantly going on about drama, who's constantly being aggressive, who's constantly being negative, it takes an awful lot of energy to deal with that person. And so what happens is that people may initially buy out of sympathy or out of sheer, oh my goodness, apparently this person's one of the cool kids, I should buy their stuff. But then what happens is that over time, people can't cope with being kept in that constant state of adrenaline. And so they move away quietly. They do like I do. They unfriend you, they mute you, they move on. Think very, very carefully. It's absolutely fine to have a bad day. It's absolutely fine to think that somebody's opinion is absolute codswallop. But again, think about where you're putting it. Personally, I have a trusted inner circle. I have my biz besties. I have my real life friends. I have my mum. I talk to my mum every day on the phone. And I have Sam. Obviously, I bend his ear all the time. And I talk to those people about things that I'm frustrated about, or things that I've seen that really upset me. Or if I've had a really bad day, I'll reach out to them and be like, ugh, today was crap. And I will ask them to support me. They're my trusted inner circle. They're always going to have constructive advice. They're always going to be there, and offer a shoulder to cry on. They have, sometimes the unconditional love thing going on. So actually, they are the people that I want to reach out to, I want to talk to, and I value the advice, the support that I get from them. Putting my problems out onto the newsfeed could cause all kinds of problems, not just for, sales, but also in terms of you get a ton of unsolicited advice. You get a ton of then subsequent drama that can appear, especially if you're talking about somebody and they know it and then they write a post and then suddenly there's this huge storm of opinions and upset and drama that you're just caught up in for days and days and days. So really, really think about how you're showing up online. Are you showing up as somebody who people want to be around? People don't mind being around people who are miserable, right? That's just part of the course. That's human. But if you're constantly miserable, people do get tired of it. And that's when, if you're somebody who's constantly miserable, and I want to put this out there in a sensitive way. If you're somebody who is constantly miserable because you're somebody who just looks at the world and always tries to find the negatives, then, take up a hobby like meditation or something like that and try and find a way of reframing your perspective on life. If you're somebody who genuinely is struggling at the moment, if you're finding life is difficult to cope with, if you find that you are lethargic, if you have any symptoms that pertain to any kind of mental health issues, please do not take my flippancy as being like, oh, well, I should never ever talk about my problems. Please, if you feel like that regularly, if you are somebody who is prone to having down days and you feel like, the world can be a struggle, reach out and get professional help. Don't worry about putting it in the newsfeed. Reach out to people who can genuinely help you, move forward. Because one thing I would hate to see is anyone in my community thinking, well, now I can never talk about being, having a crap day again. There's a very, very big difference between having a rubbish day and feeling consistently miserable and overwhelmed and like there's nowhere to turn. So if you ever feel like that, please reach out for professional help, and feel free to always email me and say, Jess, you're completely wrong. I am never averse to that. All right. The other thing is, do what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it. So this is a fun thing, right? And I'm one of these people. Life sometimes happens to me. Sometimes I really want to do things and then I get sick, or then something comes up that's an emergency. That's just life. And occasionally that's going to happen. But if you're somebody who's always promising, I'm going to do this for you, or I'm going to make that happen for you, or I'm going to send you this gift, or I'm going to do X, Y, Z, and then you don't, and you're consistently doing that, people start to feel like you lack integrity. And they don't want to be around you. It's just like people don't want to be around negative people. We also don't want to be around people that we can't trust. So, make sure that if you say you're going to do something, unless there's an emergency at play, you actually make those things happen, because it's really important and people are watching. And if you're somebody who wants to be a leader or who is a leader, you do have to practice what you preach. So it is about showing up in the best way possible and making sure that you're doing the right things for other people, making sure that you're doing what you say you will do when you say you're going to do it. Okay. It's about acting with responsibility, isn't it? Taking ownership and, assessing, is something really an emergency, or is it just that I can't be bothered to do this today? And we all have those days. I regularly have those days where I'm like, I just can't be bothered. I push through and I do it anyway because I've promised it to somebody or some people, and I'm publicly accountable. And then the final thing not to do when we're talking about selling like a human is bitching. Right? Now, I'm female. I don't know about anyone else, but I went to secondary school or high school, and there was this whole culture of, oh, so-and-so did this and so-and-so did that. And it's like Chinese whispers, and so-and-so wore this skirt and it was really awful, and so-and-so said this and da-da-da. And it was like this Chinese whispers of, here's what we can say about other people that's kind of mean. The reality is, the majority of the time, it's not because it's actually constructive in any way. It's just because I'm having a bit of a pants day and I just want to let off some steam. But bitching is really, really difficult in the online space. One, because the online space is very, very incestuous. It's very small. People know each other. So if you are somebody who bitches regularly about other people, people will start thinking, whilst it's entertaining to always get the gossip from this particular person, actually, I'm a little bit concerned about what they might be saying about me behind my back. And so you'll find that your inner circle gets depleted pretty quickly. Now, there's obviously a caveat to this. I'm not the perfect human. And, I said this earlier when we were talking about not being a douche. It is not possible for any person to be perfect. Everyone is going to have a moan about someone at some point. That is totally fine. And what I would say is that the caveat to not bitching about people, not backbiting, however you want to call it, is that if you are having a pants day and you have a client or a prospect or an influencer or anyone who's just being really irritating, you can absolutely go out to your inner circle and say, ugh, this happened today. Can you believe it? Or this person sent me this email today. Can you believe that they would send that to me? Or, oh my goodness, I just saw this post from that person and it's blatantly obvious that they have copied my stuff and I'm very, very angry about it. And the reason you can say it to your inner circle is, again, because the likelihood is if you have good people in your inner circle, they will be able to differentiate between I'm having a bad day and I just want to let off steam to I consistently backbite about other people and actually you should reconsider talking to me because I may be going out and saying horrible things about you to other people. All right. So those are the things that I always avoid. And obviously, if you're going to backbite about people, please don't say anything that you wouldn't say to somebody's face. Like, I feel like this is a teenage element, but I was always taught by my parents, if you wouldn't actually say it to somebody, probably don't go saying it to everybody else. All right. Now that we know, okay, these are the basics. And really, they're not the basics to sales either. They're the basics to just being a good human, be somebody that other people want to be around. Then we have to look at, okay, so what is actually going to attract your clients to you? If you can't be a douche, if you have to think about how you're being perceived, if you have to take responsibility for your actions, and if you can't bitch about people, how should you be showing up? And what should you be showing up with? Is it really wrong to create pieces of content that talk about a traumatic experience? No, is the short answer. But you've got to make it something that deals primarily with the learning outcomes rather than the raw pain and trauma that is happening first off. Okay, so let's take a brief look at how should you actually be showing up as somebody that other people want to be around, and therefore somebody that automatically breeds this know-like trust factor that people want to be surrounded by and therefore will buy from. So the first thing obviously is be likable. That doesn't mean that you have to be sunshine and daisies and roses every single day, but think about the things in your personality that attracted your friends, that attracted former bosses, that attracted former clients, and bring them out in your copy, in your messaging, in your social media presence. One of the things that people always say to me is that I'm very eccentric and that they think that that's a really fun quality of mine. And so one of the things, if you're a personal friend with me on Facebook, that you will always see are just, pictures of my dog, funny things that I've done, idiotic mistakes that I've made. You know, there was one recently, I think I talked about, I had a face pack on and it was really frustrating. I put this really nice dermatological face pack on and it said very specifically 8 minutes on your face and then you take it off. And I kind of sat down at my laptop. I was writing a blog and 40 minutes later, I went to take a sip of my drink and I was like, oh my God, my face has turned to stone. And I literally looked like those people off of Game of Thrones where their skin is turning to rock. And I put that on Facebook because I was like, yeah, that's funny. You know, so think about the things that attract other people to you. Think about the qualities you have. Are you somebody who's really, really honest and gives really transparent feedback? Are you somebody who's funny? Are you somebody who's genuinely caring? You know, one of my clients, Victoria Hatton, she is just, honestly, she's like this ray of sunshine that you could just put in your pocket and keep there all day long. And every time I see her, every time I speak to her, she's always smiling. She has the biggest smile on her face. And she has stuff that goes on in her life. She has stuff that goes on with her business. But every single time, she's always smiling. She's always positive. She's always looking for the bright side. And for me, that's something that in her messaging and in the area that she works, that is just so valuable, you know, and it really makes people warm to her. You know, she is like the sunny day that you have ice cream on the beach. And I love that. One of my other clients, Sam Barefoot, she is naturally super, super funny, very, very sarcastic, right? She's got a really dry sense of humor. And I love that. I find it really, really funny, really entertaining. And she's very direct with it. So what you see is what you get. And I think that that's a great quality. And it's something that really attracts people to her. And again, in her content, she uses that regularly. She talks directly and transparently to her audience. She isn't afraid to call things out. But she's also really quick-witted. She's really funny. Her content's very entertaining. Okay. Think about how you are, you know, how you are showing up and whether or not it's really reflecting those things that have attracted your friends, have attracted previous clients, previous employers, because they are really important. And then think about, you know, where are you putting this information? You know, and this is really the important one is absolutely you can share things that are potentially painful, traumatic, but they have to be learning lessons, you know, and think about where you're sharing them. If you're not careful about where you share them, you could really inadvertently upset or hurt somebody. So, you know, think about, okay, I just had a bad experience with, I don't know, a web designer, a Facebook manager, a content writer, a VA or whatever, and you've had the conversation with them. It's not then cool to necessarily blast that straight back out onto the newsfeed. Okay, give it a couple of weeks. Think about the learning outcomes. Think about how it could potentially make that person feel. And more importantly, think about how it could make that person react. You know, if somebody blasted me publicly on social media, regardless of whether they name me or not, I'd feel really, really burnt. And the likelihood is that I might not respond to it publicly, but I sure as heck would be talking to my inner circle about it. And if my inner circle happened to, you know, be involved, they would then avoid that person. And then you start losing sales, you start losing that trust with your community and all those things that are genuinely so important to you. You know, so really think about where are you putting this stuff? I talk to, you know, I'm always really open that I will talk to my biz besties. I will talk to, you know, other people in my kind of real world circle. I bend my boyfriend's ear incessantly about things, which I'm sure drives him nuts, but hey, that's what you sign up for. You know, those are the people that I trust and that I know are not necessarily going to go out and just blast my personal trauma, my personal pain out onto social media, you know, or get involved in big dramatic things going on. So think about how you're showing up, think about where you're putting it. And also think about, you know, am I just being a good person? You know, am I showing up and being helpful? Am I showing up and educating people? Am I showing up as somebody who is genuinely helpful and interested rather than patronizing and condescending? Am I entertaining people? Am I inspiring people? Am I motivating people? Am I giving them more self-belief? If you are that kind of person, if you're showing up, if you're regularly answering questions in Facebook groups, if you're going out of your way to help people, if you are connecting with people, building genuine relationships, you're always going to find that you have a steady stream of sales because you are simply being somebody that other people want to be around, and they will naturally refer you, they will naturally recommend you, and they will naturally buy from you. Hopefully you've enjoyed today's episode. It's been an interesting one for me to record, so I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on how you can be or how you can show up, or any questions that you might have on, things like being polarizing or having a controversial message and what that really means for, showing up as somebody that people know and like, pop them into my inbox. It's jessica@jessicalorimer.com, or feel free to head over to my free Facebook community, the Smart Leader Sales Society. The link is in the show notes. You can head over there and ask me any questions that you would like. I hope you have an amazing start to the week. I'm very, very excited. I've got coffee in hand, blog posts about to be written. So if you haven't checked out the blog yet, make sure that you go and do that and grab some extra Jess entertainment for the week. I will see you in Friday's episode where I've got a super special guest. So make sure that you hit that subscribe button and don't miss out on anything else. See you soon.